welcome to episode 20 of The Rebel Show. It's pretty cool that we got that far. I remember when I first started these, and man, it seems like time flies. We're way up to episode 20, so that's cool. It's been a good experience, and it's been great learning, and it's been good to have a message to share. So, here in episode 20, I want to talk a little bit about current events. Lately we've had a lot of talk in the media about gun control, and there's been school shootings and how to handle that, and the media's attacked the NRA for some reason. And I think it's important to realize that there are certain elements of having weapons that we do need to be aware of, and there should be some laws and stuff, but I don't think you should just attack different agencies just because you don't like that they stand for something that you don't like. This is supposed to be a free country, and if people want to promote an opinion, that should be allowed, but you shouldn't put people that have nothing to do with the situation, you shouldn't punish them. So we're going to talk about the Second Amendment a little bit, and I think it's been fun researching this episode. So the Second Amendment, excuse me, we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to read some quotes from our founders and talk about their opinions on why they had the Second Amendment, which I think is going to be awesome. So the Second Amendment was written in 1789, ratified in 1791, and it reads, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." And I think it's important to realize that the Second Amendment does not give Americans the right to bear arms. It protects the inalienable right that God gave us. So God gave us the right to protect ourselves, and the government put this amendment in there to say, hey, this is a right from God, and we're not going to take it away. We're not going to step in the way of that. We guarantee that we'll stay out of the way. That's more of what this is about than giving us a right. It's not one of those things where the government said, okay, I think it's good that people own guns, they're not allowed to have them, but we're going to give this to you. We're going to be nice and give you guns like they give out food stamps or something. It's not like that. God gave us the right to protect our person and ourselves. So our founders believed that having the ability to protect our person and our private property was a right given by God. And since it's given by God, no man or government can take it away. This is the basis of the amendment, guaranteeing the government will not get in the way. When it's talking about a militia, it's not talking about the military. It's talking about the individuals in a neighborhood or a town or a county that own weapons that are able-bodied. It's talking about you and your neighbors are the people that are the militia that should be well armed. Nowadays it's not such a big deal, but back in these days, these people traveled on horse or carriage, and there was a lot of bandits and robbers and stuff that would be in the forest, and you always wanted to protect yourself. Plus, there were wild animals, so we don't have some of those same exact scenarios. We don't necessarily have to, we drive in cars mostly, so we don't have to worry about like a bear or a robber necessarily. Well, you do some in some neighborhoods, but mostly that doesn't apply as much. But the inalienable right God gave us still stands. We still have the right to protect ourselves, and there's really no scenario that that right should go away. We should always, even if we never have to exercise it, and hopefully we never would, should have the right to protect ourselves. In the founding era, these people taught their children from a young age to shoot and handle guns, and they used not just muskets, but long guns and pistols. Long guns were more meant for the hunting because they could shoot a little further. And people were encouraged to carry guns like to school. Can you imagine being like 12 or something or 10 and taking a gun to school, taking your rifle to school, leaning it on your desk or whatever while you do your schoolwork? That's just amazing. Like church. People carried it to church, and they encouraged everywhere you went. It was basically unlawful to travel without a weapon. So let's read a couple of these things. This is cool. I got this book. It's called The Second Amendment from wallbuilders.com, and this is just basically quotes from the founders about guns. So one thing that's important to consider is when you read the founding documents like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you got to not just read the text, but you got to kind of research what the intent of the law is, because sometimes they write things and you could take from it whatever you want. So it's good to realize that the two documents, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the Declaration, they all fit together, and to research them together and then go back and read the founders' letters and diaries. I mean, all that stuff is accessible online and various websites like wallbuilders.com. So you want to make sure that you're understanding their logic when you read these things. So the Second Amendment was to protect what was frequently called the first law of nature. We mentioned this a little bit, the right of self-protection. That's an inalienable right, which is talking about it's given by God, not by a government. John Dickerson was a Constitution signer, and he said, inalienable right is a right which God gave to you, which no inferior power has the right to take away, which is another person or a government. So an inferior power cannot take away these rights God gave. Alexander Hamilton said the Supreme Being gave existence to man. He invested in him with an inalienable right to personal liberty and personal safety. The Second Amendment simply assured each citizen that he would have the tools necessary to defend his family and property from aggression, whether from an individual or from government. We have to realize that other nations that have led to communism or gone in communism first had to have their ability to protect themselves and defend themselves taken away. A lot of these tyrants that come out and kill, like Stalin and Hitler, those guys disarmed the people. So when people say that, in America we don't have that problem, they're not paying attention to history. We have to pay attention to history and learn from it, or we're going to repeat it. George Tucker said the right of self-defense is the first law of nature. And he says, wherever the right of the people to keep and bear arms is under any color or pretext prohibited, liberty, if not already annihilated, is on the brink of destruction. So when they start taking away and legislating your rights away, you know that liberty is on the brink of destruction. It's something we need to pay attention to. We can't fall asleep, people. It's not a day and age where we can fall asleep. If we're not awake now, we need to be awake now more than ever. So there was a Supreme Court justice named Justice Story. And he writes, Second Amendment allowed citizens to defend themselves not only against the aggression of other individuals, but against that of government. Again, these guys are talking about the rulers in power could get to the point where they want to take away what's given to us. And we got to be aware of it and know what the agenda is. The founders confirmed that every citizen not only has the right to life, liberty, and property, but the natural right to use force to preserve and defend those rights. Man, we don't think about that much anymore. You know, we always depend on police officers. And that's great. We love our police officers. We always back our blue, but we depend on them to defend us. But a real way to look at things is you need to be responsible and you need to take measures to defend yourself if necessary. Just like you need to get a job and provide for your family. The Bible says if you don't provide for your family, you're worse than an infidel. We don't want to be called worse than infidels. You know, we are the first line of defense for our families. We take the responsibility. Cops are great if they can get there, but we need to be the first defense. And we need to defend our rights. Samuel Adams was the signer of the Declaration, and he said, the Constitution should never be construed to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their own arms. It's a good thing to point out that if there is someone out there that does not seem to be peaceable, or that acts out, or that they plan to use a weapon in a negative way, that's not what the Second Amendment's about. This is about people that are intentionally going to be good citizens and good stewards and be peaceable and only use arms in a way that is going to defend in the like a last case scenario. This book is so full of these things. It's really cool. Um, George Mason said that British Parliament was advised to disarm the people. That was the best and most effectual way to enslave them. And we talked about how Hitler and other tyrants did that. You can't take over a nation if they are millions strong. In America, we have, I think I read something like, and I think this number is low, 77 million gun owners. And just think, that's a big army if they ever had to come together. You wouldn't want, there's no army that could come against gun owners in America. Richard Henry Lee, he says, to preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young. I feel like I'm not getting very far, and I'm running low on time, so I may have to do episode 2 of the Second Amendment. And I hope you guys would like to see that, because there's a lot of material to go over. There's a lot of opinion and talk. But I think the important thing to realize is the Second Amendment is a way to protect ourselves and our personal property given by God. So let that sink in.